All callers are muted. This conference is being recorded.
Hi, this is Russ Tanner from Global Skywatch, and it is July 21st, 2014, and this is Global Skywatch Radio. Tonight we have a very special guest that is going to speak with us in just a moment. But before we get to that, we're going to go over a few things that we want to cover. We do handle our time together very much like a meeting a lot of times. And so this meeting is where we let people call in. And if you'd like to call in, let me give you the number. It's 605-562-3140, and you'll have to type in an access code, which is 156230. Now, if you want to get all those numbers and you didn't write them down, just go to globalskywatch.com/live, and you can hear all of those there. So go ahead and get those phone numbers and call in. Let me go over a few items in our agenda. If you want to see the agenda that I follow, you can also go to globalskywatch.com/live, and I have the agenda written out there so you can follow right along with us. Let's start by letting you know that the purpose of this conference is to raise awareness about geoengineering/chemtrail so people know about what I consider the largest crime against humanity in human history. It has ruined my health, changed my life since the day I first saw it, and I remember the day, and I know when it started because I know that those jet engines are not supposed to emit trails. I've watched the sky all my life. I used to study jet engines and rocket engines as a hobby and collect pictures, and I've never ever seen a picture, having lived in the most populated areas in the most busy airspaces in the world and military bases, never seen a trail come out of a high bypass turbofan engine because they don't produce trails except under very extremely rare conditions, which most people will never see unless they're water injection engines, which there's about 50 in use in Europe right now, but 50 is a drop in the bucket compared to those that you'll see from day to day. We communicate. If you want to sign up, get notified of every show, go to wigio.com or just go to globalskywatch.com, and you have a link right there on the page where you can sign up for our Wigio group, and that will allow you to be notified that we have a show and what's coming up on every show. We notify you every week of what's going on. We want to encourage people to get out with signs. We have bumper stickers and we have yard signs, and they are, let me show a picture of those on the stream. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, I have a yard sign in front of my house. I know a lot of people do. I have some relatives that do, which I'm very thankful of. Here's what the yard sign looks like. And here's a nice gallery. Let me show you a few things. The thing I love about these things is you put them out there and you don't have to do any more work. People passing by. Same thing with bumper stickers. You put them on your car and they work for you constantly, and you don't have to keep doing any work. Here are some gallery pictures of people who have put them out in front of their houses, and here's even one at an event where they put it right outside their booth. There's one over off to the side. So please use bumper stickers and yard signs because they are very, very effective and reach people over time. One thing I want to talk about tonight on a very, very sad note. I was notified by email, an email was sent out to our Wigio group back on the 5th of this month. There is a friend that we've had called Mark, who has been a supporter since the beginning of my involvement in this radio show. He was always very reliable, called in, helped us, backed me up. I had many long conversations with him, and his wife sent an email out on the 7th of this month, and I would like to read that to you. Here's what she said. This unfortunate message is for everyone regarding my dear husband, Mark. On the evening of April 19th, Mark had a sudden stroke caused by a clot and passed away 8 days later. Family, friends, and everyone is not only saddened by his passing, but also in shock as he was in perfect health, ate mostly organic foods, hiked an average of 35 miles a week, had no health problems, no high blood pressure or cholesterol issues, and no warning or symptoms that something like this would even happen. He loved Global Skywatch and was a serious advocate for the cause, telling and sharing the info with everyone he met. Please keep him in your thoughts and prayers. He was indeed a very special, loving, caring person. I have had many long conversations with Mark. He would regularly call into the show. He supported me morally. He was a great friend, and it very much saddens me to hear this. I was really shocked to hear this because I always counted on him. Every couple weeks I'd get a phone call and we would chat. Sometimes we'd have long conversations, and I don't know, I just can't say enough. He was very, very consistent. He was very, very helpful, very, very encouraging. He was an advocate for this cause, and I would just like to dedicate the next 15 seconds of silence to him as you listen to this quiet airtime. Remember that strokes can be induced by aluminum buildup in capillaries. I do hope that everyone remembers Mark. I know that many of you listening knew him and you heard him many times on this show calling in and supporting us. I believe in honoring those people who have helped you. You always honor those people and you always keep them in your thoughts, and you always support those that support you and who are noble and honorable. And Mark was that kind of person. He was in very good health, as the email I read to you said, and on our Global Skywatch page, I do want to point this out, is that in the upper left in our menu, there is an item that says chemtrail-related illnesses. This link is right here if you're watching the video stream. And if you go down a little bit, here's what you'll see. The top 4 items are aneurysms, strokes, heart attacks, and cancer. Strokes, nanoparticle aluminum builds up in capillaries, causing blockages, eventually leading to aneurysms and strokes. I have a scientific article from a journal that talks about the buildup of aluminum, small nanoparticle aluminum or very small particle aluminum that can build up in capillaries. I have a friend who works for a state government. During very, very heavy spraying, there were 4 strokes in the office in one day within an hour of each other during extremely heavy spraying. 4 ambulances had to come to that state office. This is very, very dangerous. And I had a heart attack myself, as I've talked about on this show before, in 2011, which was caused by the chemtrails. It was caused by inflammatory. It was an inflammatory reaction, which I have, which causes me joint pain and heart pain and headaches. And this inflammation got really, really bad during 2 days of really intense spraying. It got worse and worse, and it led me right into a heart attack. And this pain had been going on for a year or more earlier. And I want to let people know that barium depletes potassium in mammals, and if your potassium gets low enough, it will induce a heart attack, and you'll have heart fibrillations as well before you get to the point of heart attack. And I had all of those things, and when I got in the hospital, I have no functional heart issues. My only issue they found was extremely low potassium. And I wrote my story. You can see my story if you go here about my heart attack. Go to the homepage of Global Skywatch, which is right here. And in the left sidebar, you see my chemtrail story and observations. This opens up a new window. And on the left sidebar, there's a link right here for my chemtrail heart attack. So please, one thing that I always keep in mind is whatever you believe that chemtrails or geoengineering are for, I believe they are in part for depopulation, but that's my belief based on the research that I've done. And I unfortunately know a lot of people, and I feel like myself was almost depopulated. I want to go through the rest of the agenda items. Please remember Mark. And let me go through the rest of the agenda items now, and then let's talk to Michael. I do want to say that I'm getting attacked, as other people that are in the movement are getting attacked by trolls and shills. Web pages up saying that I'm a disinformationalist, or that I'm making a lot of money, or I claim to be a doctor, or I'm anti-Semitic. These are all the typical things that they accuse activists of trying to discourage us and trying to discredit us in the public eye. None of those things are true, and I did a show on that too. If you want to look at our previous shows we did with Madison Star Moon and John Massaria, and we talked about disinformation trolls and how they work. I actually had a guy call me who was in the military, whose friend was actually operating one of these centers where people sit behind monitors and create fake Facebook accounts and websites, and they discredit people in the movement, among other things. This is very real, and this is what they do. I also want to draw your attention that our administrator, Kim, could use help. We have a fundraiser going that you'll occasionally see, actually daily, you'll see that pass through the Global Skywatch Facebook group, so please consider helping Kim. She's in a very difficult situation, and again, I believe in being honorable, noble, and loyal to those who've been loyal to you, and Kim has been with our Facebook group. She was the first administrator that worked with me on the group, and she's been with us ever since, and she works tirelessly. So in my honor of her and being loyal to her, I have done everything I can to help her, including starting this fundraiser for her. So please consider helping Kim out by making a donation when you see that fundraiser come across your screen in the Global Skywatch group. Tonight, producer of What in the World Are They Spraying? Why in the World Are They Spraying? He's made more of an impact in this movement than anyone I personally know. I have directed many, many people to these excellent videos that he's made that have gone around the world and been translated into multiple languages. He has worked tirelessly for this cause and made a huge impact, and there's so much more I'd like to say, but without taking any more time, Michael, welcome to the program. It's really an honor to have you here.
Hey, it's an honor to be on, and Russ and everybody else, thanks for joining the call, and thanks for all of your work. You know, as many of us know, it's probably the most important issue that we as humans have had faced on the planet. But with that, you know, obviously comes great responsibility, and we have a responsibility not only to our audience but to each other. So I'd like to discuss some of those aspects. I just released an article called "Has the Chemtrail Geoengineering Movement Been Co-opted?" Or the co-opting of the movement. And it's a first in 3 parts, and it's very positive. Looking at the dynamics of the movement, what we can do to get back on track, because I think largely in a number of areas we've seen a lot of division, and you hate to see it because we're very close to critical mass, which we'll discuss tonight. But, you know, we have a great opportunity to kind of check ourselves and see what mistakes we've made and how we can become better. And you know, I think largely that the conversation should focus on this in a positive light. So I think it's a good opportunity. And but again, Russ, thanks for all of your work. I know that you've been working tirelessly, like a bunch of us, and you know, it's people like you, and I'm sure a number of people on the call tonight who have put in, you know, their due diligence and really helped us move the issue forward. Why in the World Are They Spraying? Had great success. The exposure, you know, has gotten out to millions of people. So now it's almost a common known issue, at least when you mention it. People, if they might not be completely informed about it, they've heard something about it. So we've come a long, long way in just a couple of years. And it was, you know, films had you know, a lot of influence on that, but we couldn't have reached the audiences without people supporting our work by, you know, sending links of the film and really getting out there. So it's you know, it's an honor to be part of something which I believe is really important. So I do want to thank everybody for playing their part, and I'm just part of the machine, you know, doing my part like everybody else. So thank you.
Well, great. Let's catch up real quick, Michael. I want to tell everybody we're going to have questions for Michael at the end. We're not going to make these shows go too long. We're going to try to keep them more concise and really full of information, because many of the shows we did last year, some of them went as long as 5 hours. We just had these incredible marathons that people just don't have time to hear the whole thing. But we're going to keep it concise, but we're going to take questions afterwards. So call 605-562-3140 if you'd like to call in, and then your code that you want to type in when you're asked for it is 156230. And if you didn't get that, go to globalskywatch.com/live, and you can get all the phone numbers there. We have international phone numbers you can call in on as well. And then we will have a question and answer session at the end of this. So Michael, please catch us up on, we have a lot of people on our chat. We have a lot of people on the live stream. I love to see such a great response to this now that we're back on the air exactly 1 year after we did our long series of shows in 2013. What have you been up to? Why don't you catch everybody up? What have you been up to? What about the past? And let's get on to the future and talk about your article. So what's been going on?
Well, the past, again, was very successful. You know, we reached a whole different market with the dynamics of why in the world are they spraying because of the weather and the connection to the weather. Of course, there are many, many different objectives that can be that can be achieved by putting aerosols into the sky. Weather is just one of the many, but people can relate to it. So it was a good inroad. The film, you know, I thought it would have reached its maturity, has not, and you know, we just signed a deal, cable TV deal. So it will be, I don't watch TV, but it'll be on pay-per-view, the other channels that you can order, whatever that might be. I'm not sure what the name of it is. And it's even going to be, it'll probably be, and this is kind of the little humor behind it, when you go onto an airplane and you can order movies, it'll be, I believe, on some of those outlets as well. So we hope people don't, kind of reminds me of the film Airplane, where they were showing airplanes crashes, but we hope it doesn't instigate any anger towards the pilots. We hope it's done in a positive light, but that was kind of humorous if they show that on airplanes. Wow,
yeah, I hear that. So now you have this article that I was able to skim through today, and unfortunately I wish I would have been able to read it, but I did read parts of it and I skimmed through the rest of it. I was just so pressed for time. Has the chemtrail geoengineering movement been co-opted? I have a graphic capture of that on the screen right now for people watching the live stream. Want to tell us about that article? Michael, you there?
I'm sorry, I had you on mute. I've written, you know, some articles that have gotten out to millions of people. And while they got for a small independent journalist, be decent coverage, I believe this to be the most important because it looks at the relationship between groups and the very dynamics and how when groups begin with a common goal can have divisions and certain elements that come in. So there are a lot of different reasons why groups can get co-opted. Some are, as we know, paid infiltrators that come in, but there's also different dynamics. Some are emotional when people bring their emotional baggage in, but essentially the definition of co-opt is to divert or use in a role different from the original. So I think those of us who are involved in the movement, we've seen a lot of different dynamics come into play probably in the past 12 months or maybe 8 months. And there's been, I explained some different elements that have created this division. And the one element that I think we've largely seen, and I'll cover a couple of different areas, has been character assassination. And
yeah, I'm kind of familiar with that right now.
Well, most of us are. And when you come in and when you start seeing a movement grow, especially one that threatens the power structure and the consolidation of power, you start to see this infiltration. And what it's really aimed at doing is slowing down the progress that we've made. And if you look at the Black Panthers Party, and we'll get into that a little bit later, it eventually stopped them. And it was very infiltration and the very different types of character assassinations, family infiltrations, and other elements that came in. And that was with the COINTEL program. But before we get into that, and I'm not saying everybody who uses character assassination is involved at all with the government or the FBI. There are a lot of emotional elements that can come in as well. Bottom line is this, though: if there's unethical behavior, if there's things that are going on diverting us from our common goal, the argument shouldn't be whether this person is paid or not. If they're bringing in behavior which is damaging to our cause, it should be addressed and it should not be accepted. So let's take that argument out. We can speculate if the person's paid. It doesn't matter. damage is damage. But
yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. And after you're done, I would love to hear what type of behavior is damaging. You know, what do we look for? But go ahead. Go ahead.
Let's get, the first, that's a good point. The character assassination essentially is, it's a common, it's an effective tactic, and it's really it's used by people who want to take either power, authority, or control away from another person, and it usually comes into different group dynamics. So the definition of character assassination is a vicious personal attack, especially one intended to destroy a public figure's reputation. Interesting because, as we know, there's been a lot of this coming into the movement. Rarely do these attacks relate to an individual's work that they've contributed to the movement, and they usually don't hold merit, but they're very damaging nonetheless. And what the attacker does, the attacker touches an emotional chord, and it's usually somebody who has influence or authority within a group to some degree. So they'll assassinate the character of another person, whether it's calling them an adulterer, a wife beater, drug addict, or other name or names. And because that person has influence, it creates emotion into a group or groups or the people involved. And it's usually a negative emotion, and that's what they really go for. They're trying to, again, take whatever authority, control, or possibly a position within the group, whether it's a stated position or it's just somebody's audience. They will do that in a very manipulative way. So I use the example in the article of public postings. Now, we should never have public postings about the private lives of others. It's very unethical. But because it's usually done in a very covert but openly very manipulative way, it becomes very emotional. And what it does, it takes the person being attacked away from the work that they're doing, and it puts them in a position where they have to defend things that are not related to a group or a group's common goal. So an example of this would be like a website posting of somebody saying, we're sad to say that Ralph, has slipped and he's cheated on his wife, and we can only hope that, Ralph's adultery, which could have dire consequences to our cause, we can only pray and hope that Ralph will get the necessary treatment that he can get. And it's pulling on the emotions. It does create emotions in the people. However, usually coming from a trusted member or respected member within the group, it's usually not initially identified or recognized. But again, it does, I hate to beat a dead horse, but it really, because they're made public, or it could be in the form of gossip. I've had a number of phone calls being, very involved with this issue of people gossiping about perhaps somebody who they spoke with who is drinking or another issue, or, saying so-and-so's out of their mind. And it's damaging. No matter what the reason is, it's damaging. And again, it takes us away from the common goal, but it's a very, very, very effective method at diverting a group. And I know from personal experience, I was forced to have people, ask questions about my private life. And I said, wait a minute, this is not about my private life. Let's talk about my work. And they said, well, there are two sides of every story. And I agree with that. There are two sides of every story. Neither of them should be allowed to infiltrate our movement.
Yeah.
And that's where I stand on that. But we usually see character assassinations, and I'll get into some of the reasons, coming out of the same person. So there tends to be a same template. You will see a person continuously calling you up, gossiping about somebody. And again, it's usually done in the most manipulative, covert way. And again, they're trying to influence the group or people within the group from supporting another person. And usually what you'll do, once you see character assassinations brought in, you'll see the very person that assassinated the character of somebody take away the person's authority, control which I don't like the word control, but usually audience. So they assume this new position, and they do it by unethical means and not by ethical means. And that should never come into our movement. But usually what it will do is it takes a person who uses those means to gain this audience. It puts them in a position where they're usually not equipped to lead or be in that position. So then it's common to see that person actually pushing away the very people who they're trying to reach, creating divisions within the movement, and it's very damaging. Anytime we have negative elements like that coming into the movement, it diverts us, and it is wrong. And, you know, those are very common today in our political system. You'll see it during campaigns. I know Obama, whether you agree with his policies or not, he was called a Muslim, a homosexual. And again, those things are not pertinent to what he is doing as a president. But again, it's very effective. If you look at the dynamics, the basic dynamics of character assassination, it is very effective in the political system. But when we as a group have a common goal of getting these programs stopped, when you see that kind of behavior, and we'll go over some of the points and how to address this and how to handle it, it should draw up a red flag, and we immediately need to say, hold on, what's going on here? I didn't join the movement to worry about, you know, John cheating on his wife. We have a common goal of getting chemtrail stopped. So
Right.
When you see that behavior, you should question the person. We should be all over that person and say, why are you bringing this element into our movement? It's damaging. It's wrong. It's unethical. You want to get into that stuff? Go into the Republican Party, run for president, start attacking somebody else's character.
Yeah, there's the one thing that I know is that everybody, you know, in this movement, we have a common goal is to stop the spraying. I am very passionate about this because I smell and taste it, and I say this on every show because there's been a small army of people who contacted me who smell and taste it as well, and it causes me tremendous inflammation, heart pain. It almost killed me in 2011, and I know a large number of people who have passed away since the spraying started. I saw the number of people who I know who died or got sick greatly increased the very first year they started spraying in the area that I was living at the time. And so I have been personally affected by this for people I know and care about, plus my life. I feel the inflammation, the pain. I live with it daily, and being one who smells it and tastes it, this is very, very real to me. In fact, it's so strong to me, it shocks me that other people can't smell and taste it, except for a relatively small percentage. But that is growing. More and more people have contacted me about that. Now, Michael, so where do you want to go from here? How do you address, I mean, I know character assassination because I've got, in fact, just this last week, I had a couple nice people send me links to my character being assassinated online. And, you know, years ago, I was very sensitive to this. I started running forums like in the early 2000s. I had my own forum, and people would say something negative, and it would just get me emotionally, and I'd get all caught up in the debate. And, you know, and it took me years to kind of get a thick skin, you know. And today I just ignore it because I know that there are people who are paid by our government who sit behind computers. And like I said, a guy called me, one guy actually called me whose best friend does this. He actually owns a company. He's got about 200 people who sit behind screens, and they assassinate characters and put up false information to try to convince people that those lines in the sky are contrails. This is very real, and this is your tax money at work. So I've learned to become thick-skinned about it. Where do you want to go from here? What do we do? How do we deal with it?
Well, I think if we're and I don't like to use the word victim, some people are victims, but I stepped back and I watched, you know, I reached out to an individual who posted some very damaging thing. He went as far as calling my family. I was receiving several calls saying, you know, so-and-so is really worried about you. They're saying you're doing this, you're doing that. And I tried to get people back, you know, in line. It was very effective. We had a large funding deal, and this happened right after that was presented to us. So I think it interfered with that, but it definitely interfered with my support without question. And I think it set the movement back. But I watched. I sat back and watched in the same template. Once I was, or that this person, these people thought I was out of the picture, then they moved on to the next target. Then on to the next, and there's a pattern here. And what you will see when somebody usurps this authority, they gain their position within a group or in a group dynamics through unethical means, usually they're up in this area and they're in a place of fear. So they're trying to lead, but they're not equipped to do it. So anybody who comes into the group dynamics who might threaten their belief system, their authority, or their perceived control, you see them go after this person because they're really fearful of losing that position that they really weren't called to be in the first place. And I think it's clear to all of us. We all have different roles, whether it be somebody who's behind the scenes providing information, or a person who's out in the forefront, somebody who's speaking to a large audience, or somebody who's speaking to an academic audience. And we need to recognize what our positions are and what our roles are. When we step out of that, we find ourselves in a place where we can create quite a bit of damage. And one of the elements that we really see is usurping the authority. So somebody who usurps authority really looks for a weak point, usually in their opponent. And you would hate to see these dynamics come into the geoengineering movement, but they do. People look for weak points in other people within the movement, and they will exploit that through phone calls, public postings, or even public dialogue. And bottom line, I'll continue saying this, it's unethical in our political system, and it's absolutely unacceptable, no matter what level, no matter how bad it seems, when we bring this into our activism. And the point I want to make is it's really, the whole point is not whether these labels, these names that are being called are true or untrue. Is it pertinent to our common goal of getting geoengineering stopped? So again, you'll usually see this person, again, assume a position of authority, and then they start ruling tyrannically. And anybody that threatens that position, somebody might have a new idea, and that's threatening to their position. So they make a public post. Somebody might disagree with them about a sub-issue. Because of that, they'll say, oh, so-and-so is a disinfo agent, or they'll put another label on them. And that's really damaging to the movement. I think as of late, we've seen a lot of public postings labeling other people that have potential audiences. And with the geoengineering movement, we have made a lot of progress in the past 4 years, in the past 10 years. And so many people have brought a lot of great elements in. And even the people who are doing the character assassination, and we'll get into why people are in denial about this or why they continue supporting it, but we're still in our infancy stage. And, I really want to reach out to the audience. And when we're addressing this, this is not about our ego and about exploiting somebody else because they don't completely agree with us. We're operating out of fear when we do that. This is about reaching out to people, inspiring them. Our words should be words of power. They should be words of authority, and they should move people. We should never have to manipulate and put other people down within the movement, especially those who don't agree with us. And especially, we have people who have audiences that reach out to 10, 20 million people. And I'm seeing negative posts about these people. And what that does is it creates an environment of people in other movements who won't even touch this. Because if they touch it, they know they're going to get publicly ridiculed, put down, and called a disinfo agent. And it destroys all of the work that we have done. Again, we're a very small movement right now, and we're in our infancy stage. We need to develop relationships. And if people don't agree with us, let me tell you something. I've been in this for 4 years, and people, when I put out my first film, some people started heckling me, trying to argue with me, and I kept on talking to them. And I'll tell you something. About 80% of those people emailed me back, and they said, I thought you were a nut. I thought you were a whack job, but I've been listening, and I'm on your side now.
That's a very, Michael, that's an excellent point. I want to back you up on that, is that when people oppose you and they act like they don't care, or they act like you're crazy and they put you down, do not underestimate the power of your words. I've been through this many times where you just keep talking, you keep showing the evidence, you keep showing your rainwater test, you keep talking about your experiences and your observations and the evidences and the patents and whatever, and you will be shocked at the power you have. Those people are having an emotional reaction because they're afraid. So just keep pushing forward, and you'll be shocked at how many people come around. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, and especially people of influence. And And there have been a couple public figures who have done what I call hit pieces, and we don't need to hang these people in public. We don't need to ridicule them, because bottom line is they have influence. And what we need to be doing is reaching out to them, and which I've done. I've said, listen, the people who have attacked it publicly, let me be clear. Obviously, I don't agree with your position. However, I don't agree with the position of those who have called you a disinfo or whatever name they have. And I'm here. If you ever have any questions, if you ever want to talk, the door is open to talking to me. We need everybody addressing this, whether they agree with us or not. And, I want to bring up, I think it's important to bring up divisive issues and how those are used to infiltrate a movement. There's Cass Sunstein wrote a long paper about infiltrating movements, and he specifically listed the issue of global warming to bring into movements that believe that it might be a fraud. Now, I'm not taking sides of the issue, whether it's real or not. And the reason is this. We have, again, a movement that's in its infancy. According to recent polls, 8% of our population is aware of geoengineering. You take an issue like global warming, we have a 98% awareness in our population. That is almost split in 50 by belief systems. 46% of the population believes that global warming is real and we need to stop it. And the other percentage of the people believe it's a deliberate fraud. So the common argument is, well, geoengineers are talking about global warming, so we need to bring this into our activism. Well, first of all, it's divisive. We have a common goal of getting geoengineering stopped, whether global warming is real or not. When you bring that into a room, let's say you're talking to 100 people, belief systems in my studies, and I'm writing this on the next article, people support issues based on emotion, not based on fact. So when we go into a room, we're addressing this to 100 people. By statistics, 98% of those people are not aware of the issue. And let me tell you something, hitting the streets, going out and talking to people, when you hear of it the first time, it really seems like it's crazy. It just seems way out of there. So you already have a block emotionally with people. But when you bring in a sub-issue such as global warming, whatever side you believe on, you alienate. You completely lose 50% of that crowd.
So you think it's best to keep that discussion out of the geoengineering discussion? Is that what you're saying then?
You have to, and the reason is this. Geoengineers bring up global warming as a reason for their geoengineering programs. Their reason for bringing it up is a solutions-based argument, meaning they are speaking to an issue that 43% of the population believes is a problem and are looking for a solution to. So we can assume that a large amount of people will support the toxicity, the environmental, human health implications for a solution of a perceived problem. When we bring it into geoengineering, it's not a solutions-based argument. It's an opinion-based argument. It cuts through and divides your audience in half. And I just, I've been speaking to people in Europe, and they said the movement is just arguing over this issue of global warming. And again, it's not productive. Yes, it's a very important issue to be discussed. And I'm not saying that it should not be discussed. It needs to be brought out into the open. It needs to be brought out by people who cover a multitude of issues. But it has to do with critical mass. We're at 8% awareness in our population. Critical mass is once a population gets up to 10%, then an issue or a subject, it's likely, once it hits 10%, that the population will believe, and it'll be common knowledge amongst the population. So we're shy, 2%, we're very close, we're 2% shy of that critical mass. Global warming has critical mass, it has had critical mass. It's being covered to audiences far greater than us, by Fox News, CNN, whatever side they're taking. And it's also being addressed by the alternative media. So the Alex Joneses, which I think is great. It needs to be addressed by the rest crowd, people who cover a multitude of issues. It's prudent to go into, but basic political science, politics 101, it can only create division, and that's what it's done. And those two elements I have seen are taking down our movement, and I don't think anybody who is close to this would disagree with me. There's no room, and I'm very emotional to this because there's no room. We have all worked way too hard for someone to come up and use an audience and divide us with divisive issues and character assassination. You want to talk about somebody's private life, go to an AA meeting or something. We're talking about life or death here. And taking my emotion out of it, you would think a group would see this and immediately identify it and say, wait a minute, this is not acceptable. But there are a couple of different elements that come into a group's dynamics. And my major was sociology, and so I studied a lot of social psychology. I interviewed several psychologists as well about group dynamics when writing this article. And it's pretty interesting the way that groups think. And there's this issue called cognitive dissonance. And essentially, cognitive dissonance is the feeling of uneasiness or anxiety caused when a conflicting belief comes into a group. So it comes in relative to a couple of ways. So when somebody who's in a position of authority in a group or movement, when they start doing these things that are very unethical, a lot of times people will deny the very behavior, and it comes in basically in a couple of different forms. It comes in emotion, so a lot of times we like a person within a group, or we might respect them. A lot of leaders or a lot of people who have influence, whether it's gained through manipulation or based on truth or integrity, they're very likable people. So there's this emotional connection to these people, and it's what really you could have friendship with this person, or even the emotional connection of dependence. I mean, this person could be very influential or be bringing in all of these positive attributes, which usually those are the most effective people at using these divisive tactics. It's the people who are bringing in all of these incredible attributes to the movement, but they're inspecting it with this other stuff, and before you know it, like in Los Angeles, as part of We Are Change LA, and we were having 40, sometimes up to 60 people at our meetings on the weekends. We were going out making videos, and we were doing great work, and I saw within about 2 weeks a divisive issue, character assassination, other things came in, dissolved the group. Now it's no longer active, and I will not allow, as long as I'm willing and able to speak, and I appreciate you allowing me to discuss these types of dynamics on the phone, to happen to a movement where I do have voice to speak. And I encourage everybody else, when you see these things come in, hold the people accountable in a private way. You don't need to name names. That's not truth. That's not integrity. All you have to do is call them and say, hey, this is not productive for what we're trying to achieve, and we need to hold each other accountable. Now, I'm not saying we're all perfect. I think all of us have been involved in either character assassination or these things, probably at a smaller level than what we're seeing right now. However, it's important to realize none of us are perfect, and the thing that we need to be doing, instead of pointing out the wrongs of each other to other people, we need to be looking in at ourselves and what we can do to self-improve and move forward in the movement. Again, none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes, but it's those who continue to make mistakes, those who don't listen, those people are a real threat to the movement. And when you see a continuous pattern of behavior, if people won't listen, they continue doing it, it's important to disassociate with that person until they change. But again, these people usually bring in a lot of positive attributes, so there can be a fear based, and that's why a lot of group settings people will continue supporting. And that fear-based is this. Let's say somebody has a strong belief on an issue that's divisive, and we covered global warming. the fear in addressing that to a person, let's say if it's a leader who usurped their position or authority and is known to publicly post things and gossip and everything, there can be a real fear within a group to not have a relationship with the leader, or worse, even be disassociated with the group, like we've seen in a lot of different dynamics. So this is it's a very fearful situation, and then as we covered, there can be a fear of losing that person's positive attributes. But again, you start allowing that behavior in, you look at it and say, well, but he does some good things. No, bottom line, it usually, again, once you start seeing a pattern, you have to address it, or it infects the movement, just like a Trojan horse virus. You know, they come in, they're smiling, they have all of these positive attributes, but there's baggage. There could be an agenda. You know, they could be working as a government infiltrator. There's COINTELPRO. I spoke with Ted Gunderson, who is the head of the Los Angeles FBI. And the Black Panthers were, you know, kind of, I'm looking at the dynamics right now of the chemtrail movement and what's been done on a public level and what divisive issues are coming in. And it really, if you study and if you go to the article, again, I think it's posted on your site, you'll see these same dynamics coming in. And they used character assassinations. Ted had told me one of the tactics they used, they were interfering with family issues that had been done to me. Somebody had been calling my wife and spreading, you know, a lot of just things that we don't even need to talk about, because it's not productive for what we're doing. But they also would send like love letters to another members of the group, and they would sign it fictitiously with a wife or a girlfriend of another group member. And what it did, it caused a lot of strife within the movement, and it was very effective at slowing them down. There are other things. There's MK Ultra, which, you know, we can only speculate. And then there's cognitive infiltration, which we spoke about, Cass Sunstein. And that's, he's on the Obama administration. He wrote about how to bring in divisive issues into movements to slow them down. Global warming was one of them mentioned. Now, I want, again, to say this is not to say everybody that does this is an agent. I spoke with the psychologist, and he said, you know, he said this is pretty common in all groups, from social clubs, Christmas clubs, all the way up to serious governmental things. So that tells me that there's a psychological component. And if somebody comes in, they use these tactics, and again, it's seen throughout all groups. Yes, the FBI does use it to infiltrate, but it's also very emotional. So let's say we see a pattern where somebody seems overly obsessed, you know, about the adultery of somebody, or somebody was drinking and they're gossiping about it, which has become very common into the movement. There's an element that's called an unresolved issue. And unresolved issue is essentially a traumatic event that happened in somebody's life that they haven't healed from. And these issues can really infect the movement, because if somebody comes in, especially somebody who has a position of authority within a group, they have an unresolved issue, they will project their anger on somebody in the group that might be challenged with a similar thing. So let's say somebody had a father who you know, cheated on his mother quite a bit, and then somebody in the group, you know, talks about his adultery. It's common to see these people attacking people publicly out this and putting them down, and that's their emotional baggage, which they're projecting on other people. And it's damaging, because what it does, it diverts members of a group or cause or movement, in this case, from the work that an individual's done. Now, I've been called many things, but I will say this: I stand behind my work 100%. And while not perfect, I believe my work to be in integrity, and I do my best. And nobody has attacked that.
I think most people would agree with you. And I want to invite people to call in and ask you questions. I have a question for you in a second, too. But if people like to call in, please, here's the number. It's 605-562-3140. And you'll need an access code, which is 156230. And if you want to get those numbers, just go to globalskywatch.com/live, and you can find all those numbers, plus a lot of international phone numbers where you can call in right there on that page. And what you do when you call in, I'm going to turn on Q&A mode on our call-in console. Here we go.
Q&A session started.
Now, if you want to get in line to ask a question of Michael right now, press *6 on your phone, and you'll be put into the question and answer queue. And then I'll call on you as we go along. So remember, once you've called into the console, which you can get the number from globalskywatch.com/live, L-I-V-E. Then when you call into the console, press *6 on your phone to get into the queue to ask Michael a question. So please call in and do that. I would love to hear from you. Here's something, I have a question for you, because I know, I've been attacked. That there are websites, at least I know of a couple websites right now that have pictures of me up there, and they're saying that I'm anti-Semitic, I'm claiming to be a doctor, I'm making all kinds of money, none of which is true. I'm spending money. I do not make money doing this. I'm losing money, literally losing money. I pay $50 a month for this live stream. I pay almost $90 a month for a server. I do have ads on 2 of my websites which generate a small fraction of that. I just try to offset the cost a little bit with ads, but it doesn't even come close to covering the cost. So I mean, I lose money, and these claims are baseless. I guess without naming any names, here's my question, and please, anybody who wants to call in, we do have a couple people in the queue. *6 on your phone when you call in the console. Here's my question. As I've seen a couple people who have large followings in mainstream media, and I guess I won't name names, but although I want to, because I'm not happy about this, I'm upset about what happened. But one of these guys has been uncovering, very popular guy, everybody knows who he is, has been uncovering all kinds of conspiracies and doing an excellent job, and it's been quite amazing. Has had a mainstream show for a while on mainstream media. But then he covered chemtrails recently and did nothing to research it. Didn't talk about ground, soil, water testing, patents, evidences, people getting sick. None of the evidences. Actually just had a guest on who is really on the other side and did no research. What do we make of that? What do you make of something like that? Because a lot of people are frustrated about that, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean? I think you might be muted, Michael. You still there? Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you. Pardon me. Hang on just a second. When I put on Q&A mode, it muted you. So give me just a second to unmute you. Sorry about that. My mistake. Okay, Michael, there, you're back. So what do we do with people like that who, uncover all these conspiracies and then they do no research on chemtrails, which I think is the mother of all damaging conspiracies? I suffer from it. I know people who suffer from it. I mean, to me, it looks really bad when somebody does this. How do we deal with that? What do we do with that?
Well, I think it's vital in the way that we deal with it, and it's disinfo. And should we allow that into the movement? No, but the way that we address it is vital. And again, you never want to close the door to somebody who has a potential of 10 million, 20 million, even 100,000, okay? So what you do and what I did, and I know who you're talking about, I reached out to him because I have a connection with him, and I said, listen, don't agree with you, obviously, because I produced these 2 films. However, I am open to talking to you, so if you have any questions, the door is open. Activism, leadership is about building relationships, whether a person agrees with us or not. And there are people now attacking people because they don't agree with sub-issues, and that's really ego-driven. And it's, no, you have to come into my belief system. Our words should be powerful, and when we speak in truth and integrity, they will move people. They will. That's truth. We should never manipulate. We should never put down. You look at the greatest speakers in the world, Martin Luther King, John F. Kennedy, they never got up into the podium and started pointing fingers at individuals. Their words spoke and they moved people. But you get somebody who usurps a position, who's up there and who's fearful, they really shouldn't be up there. So then they start attacking other people. No. Our work should never be about attacking people. It should be earning the right to speak to them. And when you earn the right to speak to somebody, that is when mountains are moved. That is when people come around. I can personally tell you from experience. So,
well, let me just ask you about this person who did this, though. Everybody knows his name. He has been uncovering conspiracies for a while, doing a very excellent job. And I was introduced to a lot of how disinformation works years ago because I was actually worked for a political party, and they taught us things that that it was a small political party, but they were extremely wise. And I learned all this stuff. I learned incredible stuff when I was there about how this stuff works, because they wanted us to be bulletproof against people trying to divide us. And so they were very wise to it. And one of the tactics that people use on the other side, who are trying to discredit this movement, is they will gain a following in the movement. They will take time, maybe a year, 2 years, or whatever amount of time, and gain a following, and then they will shatter the most important issue. They will make concessions, like little, they'll say, oh, I'm going to uncover this, uncover that. None of these things really make that much of a difference in the scope of things. And then they come to an issue like geoengineering, chemtrails, which is killing everything and destroying the planet. And it is the biggest thing that's ever happened. And nothing else matters in my view. And well, I shouldn't say nothing else matters. Everything matters. But it overshadows everything because it affects everything and everybody. And if we don't stop this, then nothing else is going to matter soon on the trajectory we're on. And so this person gains this following by exposing these concessionary type issues, which really won't make a difference in the long run, and then uses that following to say, well, I really don't believe that geoengineering is going on in light of blatant evidence. And so people are mad about that. I'm mad about that. And I don't know, what do I do? I mean, if this guy, is this guy disinfo? I mean, it doesn't look good in my eyes. I mean, so how do we treat him? What do we do? Well, how do we handle that anger?
Bottom line is this, it should draw up an emotion because we've been working hard. These people that do that, they have, maybe a 50 million reach in their audience. And with geoengineering, we might reach 10 million, 11 million. It might even be bigger than that now. We're a small fish in a very, very big pond. So to think me putting this person down in a public nature is going to persuade the audience is ludicrous. The numbers simply are not there.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. Go ahead.
What you do, because by doing that, the person sees it and they're like, okay, this person called me several different names. Am I ever going to address this? No, it creates dissonance, it creates division, it creates distance.
But let me ask you this. I think people would probably ask you this question. They say, but isn't this person working for their side anyway? So what difference does it make how they feel about it, because they're already sold out? I mean, isn't that the case, or what would you say?
Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter if people are paid or if they're working on emotion or just based on misguidance. We have the power and ability to change everyone, whether they're paid or not, and we have to do it. And I can tell you from activism, because I've gone out, in the past, ego-based, and argued with people, this is true, you're lying to people. That never turns anybody. That has a 0% chance. What it does is it pushes them further away, and it creates a barrier between us and them, and we have to break through that barrier. This is not about arguing. This is about reaching people and changing them. We can only do that by building relationships. We don't have to agree with everybody. That's not the point. We don't have to say, oh, yes, I agree with you. No, hey, listen, I disagree with you. However, let's get our egos out of it. Let's get the disagreement and keep that door open. I have seen so many people turn. So many people turn because I haven't attacked them. That's not ethical. It's not my style. Sometimes our activism calls for that. It does. But, let's look at the numbers and let's be prudent about this.
So even somebody in a very high-level position like that, who's probably paid a lot of money, has tons of notoriety, he might change. That's what you're saying.
Well, I'm saying he could change, but
right.
Publicly posting something where 1 million people see it only creates distance. And I think everybody that reads these negative postings probably is on the same page.
Right.
What it does is it creates a fear in other people and other movements from even addressing this, from even touching it. And we don't want that environment. It's not productive, because people in other movements, even if they address, I've seen people attacked because they have different beliefs on global warming. Who's going to cover this issue? You just attacked somebody with 30 million followers, and they're covering geoengineering, but they didn't come into alignment with your specific belief system? Are you kidding me? Do you think that person will ever address this again? No, we need to reach out to these people. We need to sit down and have lunch with them.
Let me ask you this, Michael, because I think some people might say this, and these are just honest questions. I've got some people in the question and answer queue I want to get to in a second. But if these people, like this person who did this, who's been leading people for the last couple of years and gained a big following in the conspiracy movement, and then came out and said, "Well, I don't really don't believe chemtrails. There's really no evidence." Or there's not. I mean, um, didn't that person really divide us? Didn't he give us kind of a crushing blow and make other people afraid? And this is just an honest question. Did he make other people afraid to approach this movement by doing that? Maybe that was his purpose if he is disinformation, right? I mean, and so should we call him out and say, sorry, he's not working for our side? I mean, what's the best approach then?
I think the best approach is behind the scenes, because those of us who are in the movement already are aware of this. And again, if we keep on moving forward, we look at our audience, we speak to our potential audience, then we move people. When we get diverted by putting people down and arguing with other people, we really get off our common goal. Our common goal is to reach as many people as possible, not to shed the light on everybody who might disagree with us. That's wasted energy. It really is. I can spend 10 hours a day focusing on growing my audience, or I could spend 5 hours writing an article which exposes how wrong somebody is. No, we got to keep it on the positive. That is how you move mountains. It's not pointing the finger and putting other people down. That's negative energy, and it's not productive. And yeah, we're all emotional about this. You never want disinfo to come in, but again, in the manner in which we do it is absolutely vital. And again, you close the door on somebody with a large audience. I'm not saying agree with them. You don't have to agree with somebody, but to publicly humiliate somebody or publicly character assassinate, whatever you want to do, however you want to label them, that's not productive. But I've seen a lot of people who've been covering, geoengineering getting attacked as well,
Yeah, I'm one of them. Okay, I hear what you're saying. I hear your approach.
And our activism should not be about, making people come into alignment with our belief systems. We have to let people come to their own conclusions. That's what a powerful leader does. That's what a powerful activist does. It's positive.
Is it?
Look back at all of our powerful speakers. Now, do I want to go and strangle the person
who just lied to the public about this and didn't bring up any of the evidence? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a common natural reaction, especially for something that's really important to us. But again, does me telling 1% of my audience, or the numbers just aren't there. We're in the infantile stage of this movement, so we have to keep it on the positive. And again, sometimes our activism does call for calling people out, especially in the public forum. In Where Change, we did that quite a bit. We did it in the form of asking questions. And I think that's a more ethical way to do it.
Okay, so it's okay to call people out. It's the way you do it then. Is that more?
And ask them questions.
Uh-huh.
And that's how you do it, because then you create a dialogue. We shouldn't be labeling people. We shouldn't be targeting people.
It's hard. I hear what you're saying, and I know it's hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me, who I suffer every day. I have to wear a wet mask through large parts of the day. I suffer pain. I had a heart attack. I know people who've died, which I believe is directly as a cause of this. So I hear what you're saying, and it takes a lot of strength to do what you're saying, because it is emotional. It's emotional for me.
For us, we're so angry about this, because it really comes down to this. It's based on my research, based on what I know, this is life or death. We're talking about some real serious things.
It is life or death.
And when you see somebody come in with that, it's because it is emotional, but then it's also, wait a minute, hold on, don't lie to the very people that we're trying to reach. But we also have to look at the inner dynamics. And anytime, we're all leaders, everybody in the movement. You have an audience, whether it's 2 people, 5 people, whether it's your neighborhood, or even your family. You have a leadership role. And with the leadership role comes great responsibility. And to ignore that or not respect that responsibility. It's very disrespectful, not only to the other activists when you're putting other people down. It's disrespectful to all life on the planet. So we have to recognize our responsibility, our position. I'm not saying that we never make mistakes, but when you see a continuous pattern of people creating divisions within movements, bringing in issues like we covered with global warming, and yes, I have very strong beliefs on global warming. Will that come into my activism? No way. No way, because it's not prudent. Prudent is defined essentially as doing the right thing at the right time. Will there be a time when we can bring that argument in? Absolutely. Once we hit critical mass and this becomes common knowledge, then we can start doing it. But I almost feel like, as I took a little break from the movement, I stepped back, and it was almost like we were all in a bar, having a beer, giving each other high fives. I went out to get a breath of fresh air. I came back in, and everybody's in a bar room brawl, smashing bottles, arguing about global warming, concerned if John is, faithful to his wife and all this. No, that's not our common goal. That's not our common cause. If you want to address global warming, if that's important to you, which I think it's important to all of us, go join Fox News, CNN. They're covering it, and they're hitting, the audience that they're reaching is 1,000 times the audience that we're reaching. So to bring that in is not only unproductive, it's without question damaging.
Let me
no
ask,
question about it based on statistics. But again, there will be a right time to address that within our movement. But whenever you have a leadership position, if you're using it for reasons other than the benefit of the movement, let's say you have an unresolved issue, or somebody comes in and they want that position for whatever reason, subconsciously, or even when we bring ego into our activism. I've seen people out in the streets get into heated arguments with other people, and I stand back and I'm like, I'll bet you $1 million, which I don't have, by the way, that the person that they're arguing with is going to be pushed further and further away to this. And we can't we all have issues. We all have personal baggage. We all have trauma, whether it's from childhood or recent events. What we have to do is compartmentalize that so it doesn't come into our activism, because, again, we see it coming in the form which is in a very divisive nature. And again, I stepped out of the movement for a while, was attacked on many different levels. I watched, I meditated, I learned from the dynamics, and I'm hoping to share some of the things that I've experienced just to let us know, these things are a threat to the work that we're doing. And it's coming from the very people who are coming in with incredible information. They're doing incredible things, but they're also creating all of this division. And we can't accept it.
Yeah, I will say, I know that there are people being paid to do this. I like I said, I had personal contact with somebody whose buddy was set up by his previous commander in the Army to have, he gets paid to manage 200 people who sit in a room lying to the public about geoengineering and chemtrails. So, and the thing is, this is a very personal issue. It does get people emotional. It's hard. It's really hard, because people do get emotional, because this is ruining our lives. This is killing our land, our children, our grandparents. This is killing our health. It's so hard not to make it emotional. And I know it's emotional for me, because my life since 2005, my life was grand for 4.5 years between 2005. I was in perfect health. I never got sick. I felt incredible. And then when I have to breathe this stuff, which I taste and smell, it's in the air 24/7 now. Don't let nobody, I'm telling you, I'm one of the people who smell and taste it. So I'm telling you, people who are listening right now, it's in the air 24/7, and don't think for a second that just because you don't smell or taste it, it's not there. It is there. The people who have sensitive senses are sensing it, and they're telling you, I am your canary in the coal mine, and I'm telling you the truth. And so it is very emotional. It's very hard. So 2 questions for you. I want to let these people who are in the Q&A queue answer some questions, but I just really want to ask you these things. About the global warming issue, would you say then, is it reasonable to say that, look, spraying the world with toxic metals and God knows what chemicals is going to do far more damage than global warming ever is? So even if this was for global warming, and I have my own beliefs about this whole thing, even if it is for global warming, this is not the solution. This is doing more damage than good. Is that a reasonable way to look at it, or?
I think it is, and I've been, on hundreds and hundreds of radio shows. And my position has been asked many times on the subject, and the way I handle it is this. I say I have very strong beliefs about global warming. However, I have seen it come in and create divisions within the movement. Based on that, I think we can all agree, whether you believe it exists or not, we don't want the spraying. So let's move forward on what we agree with rather than arguing what we disagree with. Divide and conquer, that's a strategy. And, you know, a common question is, again, is this person an agent? Let me tell you, what I've seen come into the movement in the past year, it looks exactly like COINTELPRO. However, there's also emotions, because I've seen this, you know, in smaller groups in my mother's Christmas club. Similar dynamics are coming in. It doesn't matter whether somebody's paid or not. Damaging behavior, destructive behavior that creates division in our movement is damaging whether somebody's paid or not. It's not acceptable. It should never come in.
Okay.
So when we catch ourselves going there, and yes, none of us are perfect, we might catch ourselves going there, we should be, instead of pointing the finger at other people, which is easy to do, you know, we should be pointing our finger at ourselves. And I look back to Howie Long, you know, a football great. I'm not a sports fan anymore. When I was a kid, I was. And Howie Long was one of the best football players in the NFL. And after the games, he would sit down and look for even on his best games, he would look at all the mistakes that he made. He would look at himself. He didn't go, oh, you know, Roland Harper, you know, fumbled the ball. Look at him. How dare him? No, he said, what did I do wrong? How could I have made that play a little bit better? And that's what we need to bring into our activism. This is not about pointing the finger, critiquing other people, and especially shedding light on their flaws. We all have flaws. We can spend, you know, 7 days a week on the character flaws, personal lives, other issues, people. What we should be doing is focusing on ourselves. And effective leadership is not about, you know, putting people down. It's not making people come into alignment with our sub-issues, or will publicly ridicule them. Effective leadership is about self-replication. It's about being a mentor. It's about bringing people, hopefully, to a greater level of activism than us. It's not about ruling. I mean, you're looking at the Roman Empire, where they would behead anybody who disagreed with, with authority. And the same concept has come into our movement. And if somebody disagrees with people who are leading the charge, now I'm seeing public postings about them. Isn't that a form of public beheading? And then that creates fear. And people become fearful to disagree with this leader. People become fearful of bringing about new information or positive attributes, and that's not productive for what we're doing. My goal is this. I think it's not arguable. We've had great success within our films, and let me tell you something. My greatest hope is that thousands will do greater things than me. I can only hope. I don't want to be the leader of this movement. I never wanted to be the leader. Something, brought me up here. And now that I have an audience, I'm going to use it in a prudent manner. Because, again, when you come up to a level, and it's a small movement, it really is still in its infancy stage. But when you get up to a level where you're visible, we have great responsibilities. And again, to violate that and to do things that are big mistakes, at this stage of the game, we're very close to hitting critical mass. So
very well said.
Within people who are in the movement using the same tactics that were used against the Black Panther parties. Why is that happening with our movement, and why are we accepting that? And, really quick, it comes down to fear or emotion. We like this person, we want to be accepted. Maybe we're friends with them and we want to continue our friendship, so we let it go and we look the other way. But when somebody overcomes their denial, when they overcome that emotion, when they overcome that fear, that is when somebody says, I don't want to be a part of this, and that's where division occurs, and that's what we're seeing. I've gotten so many phone calls of people saying, I left. This person pushed me away. And I said, no, we need you. Let me encourage you to move forward. And if this beheading continues, it's going to be dealt with, hopefully behind closed doors. We never want to see private lives personal issues, all of this other stuff that we've seen come arise into the movement. I didn't join this movement. I didn't produce these films to be defending my private life. I will go to a personal group if I believe there's a challenge. And anytime we see that coming out of somebody's mouth, we should put them in check really quick. Recognize that as a vital threat call that we're doing. This is life or death. And again, we have a great responsibility, and we should not violate that.
Very well said, Michael. I want one more question for you, and then I want to have people who are waiting in the queue ask their questions. If you're calling, if you want the call-in number, go to globalskywatch.com/live, LIVE, and you can get phone number there for the U.S. or about 20 other countries. And then when you get into the call-in system, then just press *6 on your phone, and that will put you into the question and answer queue. *6 does that. All right, my last question is, before I let other people ask questions, is that somebody said on the chat room just a minute ago, and I think this is a very good point to ask. Good question to ask. Doesn't this spraying cause global warming? Michael, you still there?
I put you on mute again. I wonder how much of this interview I've spoken to.
No. I've heard almost every. I don't think it's been a problem. All right. Yeah. Somebody on the chat was wondering, was saying that the spraying causes.
These dynamics come in is
yeah.
It's very, very upsetting. But yeah, based on even NASA, indicates that putting aerosols into the sky, it will regionally cool an area. As we know, you'll see spraying come over, the temp drops. But then at night, the aerosols block and trap the heat in. So
the net effect is warming, isn't it?
The effect is warming overall, yeah, at night. So it's debatable whether these programs would mitigate global warming and probably exacerbate that.
So to our friends who believe in global warming, we can say, well, if you believe in global warming, this isn't the solution, but it really isn't the solution anyway, because these are poisonous. This is toxic to everything.
Exactly. I mean, there's no question about it. These programs are extremely damaging. However, we have to realize there are multiple agendas that can be achieved by putting aerosols into the sky. One of probably the multitude is weather control. Weather control, you control the weather, you control the planet, bottom line, period. You get into other issues, which I typically don't address too much publicly, but they're equally as important. When you get into Morgellons, some of the other things that might, people might think are, whoa, really conspiracy theory. Those issues are important. They hold merit. So again, money and power. A lot of people within the group even argue about the agendas with us, and they're arguing, no, you didn't cover that, you didn't cover that. It's funny because with the exposure that the films got, I was getting bombarded, sometimes 200 emails a day, and people would say, you didn't cover X, Y, Z. And I said, you know what, you're right. But based on our research, you didn't cover anything. If you have an issue and you have a calling, quit looking at somebody else to address this. As human beings, we have a responsibility. Quit looking at me, quit looking at somebody else. This is not about leadership and this corporate structure where you demand that somebody cover something. We all have a part in this play, and we all have a role. So quit pointing the finger and telling somebody, you need to cover X, Y, Z. No, that's not my calling. It sounds like your calling. It sounds like you missed your boat.
Well, I think that's part of the beauty of having so many people involved in this. And I said this from the start, is don't try to homogenize everybody into one organization. Let everybody do their part, because some people are going to focus on one aspect, some will focus on another, and the audience will gravitate towards the aspect they like. But we all can agree that spraying toxic metals into the atmosphere is bad and it needs to stop.
I think you said it perfectly. So what do we agree on? We can agree on that. And freedom is allowing people to express themselves. And again, the way that we deal with misinformation, disinformation, it's pretty vital. And sometimes that comes in. And it can be damaging to the movement, so you never want to see that. But it's important to realize there shouldn't be one leader in this movement. There should be millions of leaders, and the only way that we're going to get this stopped is if we encourage other people to move forward, with the areas that they feel called to. There's not only one way to address this. There's many different dynamics in this movement, and one of the areas that we've been effective with in the movement is reaching out to the masses. So we have taken, and our films are now going out to an entirely new audience. It's going out. It'll be in the homes of most Americans who have cable TV. I don't. So it's very palatable, and that's been our calling. So we address it in a way that is going to be acceptable to that crowd. However, other people have this incredible gift that we see in the movement that have the ability to effectively address this in the academic setting. So they go in and they're powerful in the academic setting, and they're talking. It's a smaller market, but very important role.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. And that's why I agree with you. You got to let people do it their own way. And I want to let people ask some questions now. I want to encourage people. My thing I really get into is the deeper conspiratorial aspect of things that are going on. I've studied government corruption since the early 80s. I don't consider myself an expert because there's so much to know. It's mind-boggling. However, it is amazing how my view of the world has completely changed, and now that it makes sense. When things happen on the news, I don't say, why are they doing that? Or they're stupid. I'm like, oh, I know exactly why they're doing that. It makes sense because I know what their goals are. And if you want to know that, I'd look at your screen right now. For those who are watching the stream, go to globalskywatch.com and click on this link in the upper left called Special Features. This will take you to a page that has a lot of special features and videos. And at the very top of the left sidebar, we have a link that says How the World Really Works. And this is a series of videos I did where I talk about the stuff that I'm very interested in. If you want to know the research that I've uncovered as to what is really going on and what's interesting on a deeper level, what is going on in the minds of those people who are doing this? Why are they doing it? What are they hoping to accomplish? And how does this affect you and your family? This is what I did this series for. So it's on your screen right now. How the World Really Works. That's how you get to it. One last question I want to ask, and I want the callers to have their chance, is what's in the future? What's coming up with you? What are you going to be doing soon, Michael?
Well, we're looking at moving forward with Who in the World Are They Spraying? Ironically, we had a substantial funding opportunity, and there was definitely some people within who were really close to us who said, we're going to talk to these people and bringing in the character assassination. I'm not sure if that was effective in stopping the funding, but it would have allowed us to probably have the film done now or within the next couple of months. And with that substantial funding, it would have probably been in theaters. But I look at it kind of as a positive because I had been going at this for about 4 years, nonstop, 7 days a week, really on a shoestring budget, living in Inglewood, California, a very, very low-income community, driving a car that, was missing a couple of hubcaps, rusty, and people, were coming to me for funding. I'm like, we don't even know if we're going to make rent this month or how we're going to eat. Our film was for free, but based on that, I was getting burnt out and losing my mind a little bit. So I needed that break. So I'm almost thankful for the people, that blocked that funding because the timing wasn't right for me. I didn't have that energy. I needed to go through my process, which was really a challenging time in my life. But the greatest challenges in our life, whether people understand it or not, or if we allow them to, they can be the greatest point of growth. So I almost look back at these people, you look at these unethical things that come in and people that you bring into funding opportunities and then they sabotage. You almost look at it like, you know what, I'm kind of thankful of that because the timing wasn't right. So I believe this, when the timing's right, that funding will come in, the elements will come together, and we're gonna produce a film that's going to be hard hitting, and I think reach out to a much greater audience and the people who were with us in truth and integrity and showed their nature and character. They're going to be part of this film. And
can people help you?
Yes, we had we reach millions of people, and that's what the movement needed at that time. But that's a very small percentage in terms of what we're going to be reaching for the future. So it's going to be an exciting time, with the movement. And sometimes when you're in when you're getting attacked, by some of those in the movement, when you're seeing all of this division, when you lose your support, you're like, wow, what's going on? But then when you can kind of see the future, you see doors opening up, you're like, wow, that was meant to happen. It showed the people who weren't supposed to be involved and move forward with. And that's when you have the wisdom, that's when you have the strength, and that's when you have the support of those around you to reach the audience and move up to the next level.
It is very interesting how things work together for good, isn't it? I've seen that happen a lot. Even when we think it's not right, we see the wisdom later on. But I would love to give people a chance to ask you some questions now, if that's okay. If anybody's in the call-in console, you can get the number by going to globalskywatch.com/live, LIVE, all small letters. You can get the phone number there to call in and the access code. You need that too. And then when you're in the console, just press *6 and you'll be put into the question and answer queue, and I will call on you one by one. We're ready to take questions. Our first caller, you are on. Welcome to the show. Who are we speaking with? Are you there, caller? Let me see if we're having a technical problem why I can't hear. Caller, your number ends in 79. Are you there? Looks like you should be on. Let me see. I'll tell you what, I'll leave your mic open to see if you come back. And caller, the number ends in 65. You're on. Who are we talking to?
My name's Laura Kozicki.
Hi, Laura. How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
Good. Well, thanks for calling in. Would you like to ask Michael a question?
Just a couple of things. Earlier in the program, people were talking about the accumulation of the heavy metals, the aluminum in the body, and I wanted to mention that intravenous glutathione with vitamin C is very effective for removing a variety of toxins, including heavy metals and aluminum. And my daughter and I have both had really good relief from using that. You would probably want to find like a naturopathic doctor, alternative doctor who could administer that.
Now, for people who don't, let me ask you this. If people who can't take the IV glutathione, what about reduced glutathione in capsule form?
I don't know about that, if that's as effective, because that has to go through the digestive system. But I had a case where I had a local anesthetic that didn't leave my body, and it left me numb all over and, very much in a fog. And I went around like that for a week, wondering if I was ever going to recover. And I did get an intravenous glutathione, and I felt better even before the treatment was finished. It takes about an hour.
Isn't it amazing how quickly that it works? And I will say about reduced glutathione too. Now, if you take glutathione, only about 10% gets in your bloodstream from my research. But with reduced glutathione, you get up to about 40%. So that's pretty, fairly effective. Of course, IV is going to be the most effective, but reduced glutathione can too. And another thing to remove aluminum that I know about is malic acid. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Yeah, malic acid was declared as, in the research I saw, it's as effective as the chemical or pharmaceutical agents they made for removing aluminum from the body. So that's actually something that I use. I use reduced glutathione, I take constant vitamin C, and I do malic acid as well, of course, along with magnesium malate too. But those are great suggestions, vitamin C and IV glutathione. Glutathione has... Yeah, about 6 months ago, an article came out talking about glutathione as being so important, it can be used to predict life expectancy of a person.
It's naturally made in the body.
Yep.
And my daughter has actually had a genetic blood test that shows her body doesn't produce enough of it, so she was deficient in it, and that accounted for an accumulation of heavy metals that she had. Took, some time to straighten that out, but the glutathione was a big part of that.
Wonderful. Okay, what else were you going to tell us?
And I was also going to ask Michael a couple things. Does he have suggestions for how to find people, in our own local area that are aware of geoengineering? Like, it's been 3 years that I've been, trying to let people know about this, and I've run out of ideas.
Did you say fight them or find them?
Find them.
to get a group together? Yeah, that's a great question, and that was our hope. Barry and I had the common goal of Barry Kolsky, co-producer, of really developing groups, individuals, but working interdependently with information sharing and information. So I started in Los Angeles. Actually didn't start, but took on the Los Angeles Chemtrails meetup group. And you can form a meetup group by just going to meetup.com, and you can be called, wherever you're from, Michigan or, Detroit meetup group. Put it out there. Start having meetings where get together, educating people. And part of my activism has always been outreach. I love going out to the public, and we allow people who order a DVD, go to whyintheworldAreTheySpraying.com, order a DVD, make as many copies as you can, and you get that out into the public. So it's a good tool to go out into the public, and it's fun. When we get together with groups, address this issue, you can have a meetup at a coffee shop, or you can go out into the public and then afterwards get together with dinner. So having this group together that addresses this, that gets together, y'all have a common goal. Have fun with it, have fun. You get new friends, but most importantly, you'll reach out into your community. One of the things that Barry and I did was we encourage people to, if you go to whyintheworldAreTheySpraying.com, to organize a screening for the film. So we've had people all around the world use this film to screen. So many people you can rent a room at most libraries for free, screen the film.
Actually, I tried my local library a few years ago, and they said they'd have to, I think the board would have to review the film. And I tried following up with that later on, and, it basically was a dead end.
Okay. Well, in that case, you'd want to go to a coffee shop, or you can even rent rooms at restaurants and stuff. And that's how to get the ball rolling. And when I've done that, when I've traveled all around the world, I've been to Europe with screenings and had a chance to speak, and it's amazing what happens when we get together, screen the film, Q&A, and then, we all know about this, we're concerned about it, what's our next step? Let's form a group. Let's decide to meet once a month. That's when you do the meetup. Get the email addresses, start the meetup, and then boom, you have a group. And my comment, Barry and I had a goal of getting groups formed all around the world. So activism starts within us as individuals, and then once we have this information, what we should be doing is focusing on replicating ourselves and getting other people to essentially be us and be leaders within our communities. So I've seen amazing groups and amazing things happen when we get together in the public. We address this in a positive way. And it's important, while we're on that subject, addressing this while sometimes some people have these unresolved issues. They bring that into the group dynamics, creating division, whatever it is. But we also have to, when we go out into the streets, we're all angry, probably to some degree, about this issue. We have to compartmentalize this and not project our anger at other people, especially those, sometimes it's easy to react. You want to strangle somebody who's arguing with you. They don't want to believe it. No, we have to separate our ego and compartmentalize that. And somebody doesn't believe it, hey, you know what? Love you. I do this because I love you, and hopefully you'll get it. You don't get it today, I'm going to move on because I can talk to 10 I can argue with you for 20 minutes, or I can reach out to people and reach 10 times the amount of people. And that's where our activism needs to be focused. It should never be argument-based. And, that there might be a role for that, maybe in the academic community or whatever. That's not my role. My role is really going out into the community and arguing with people who don't grasp this. I think it's the easiest thing to do, but the least effective thing that we can do in our activism. So I just want to encourage you, don't give up. Look for other venues. And what area are you in?
Milwaukee area, Wisconsin,
Okay.
Southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm not too far away from you now. My mother has cancer, so I'm back in Chicago looking after her. Yeah, thanks. But I'm not too far away, so if you want to organize a screening, I could drive up to Milwaukee. You can get a hold of me by going to the Why in the World Are They Spraying Facebook page and our social media. We have a lot.
I was going to ask you. I don't use Facebook, but I'm wondering if there's like a PO box number or something current, another way to get in touch with you, like aside from Facebook.
I hate giving out my email.
I understand.
Flooded with email. If you're not on Facebook, go to the acronym for the film, witwatch2@gmail.com, and that's what we've used for the film. Barry will get that email. Again, it's the acronym for Why in the World Are They Spraying, witwatch2@gmail.com. Just put in the title, please forward to Michael. And Barry will be happy to forward that on to me, and perhaps we can work together at getting something involved. And then we have had, we've been reaching anywhere between, on average, probably 1.7 to 2.2 on a good week with our social media. So it's become a powerful part of our work and our getting this message out to people. So once you have something scheduled, we can get that out to our to the people who follow us on the page. And I'm pretty confident that if we work together, we can get something started. So look forward to working with you.
Do you know how long you're going to be in the area?
I don't.
Okay.
I kind of go where the doors open. So right now I'm committed to the family at this, but based on our circumstances, I'm not sure how long. So let's try and get it rolling while it's warm. We could have an incredible outreach, maybe by the lake or something. Whatever. We'll talk. And if you leave your number, I'd be more than happy to contact you and kick the can a little bit about some ideas that you have, some of the dynamics. But thank you so much for your enthusiasm. That's exactly what we need to move forward. So thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, caller. Thanks so much. If anybody else would like to ask a question, we have, if you're in the calling console, you can press *6 on your phone. Let me try this other caller again. Caller, where your number ends in 79, are you with us? I tried reaching before, but there was no response. Are you still with us? Okay, we're not getting a response from them. So, caller with a number that ends in 27, how are you tonight? Caller whose number ends in 27, are you there? Hello, caller?
Yeah, hey, Russ, can you hear me?
Hey, there we go. Yes, you're on. How you doing?
Hey, good. How are you? This is Dan Cherry in Rochester.
Hey, Dan, I recognize your voice. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing quite well, thanks. Hello, Michael.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Doing well.
Good. Called in multiple times to Russ's calls in the past. I never got to talk to you in particular. It's a pleasure. I wanted to throw out real quick, you guys were talking about the potential for the actual warming of the climate from the spring that's been going on. And Russ, last year, just a quick note, this became a very interesting situation for me. You had Clifford Carnicom on your call, and he had been talking about his institute that he was building at the time, and had mentioned that he needed people to help out as far in the way of volunteering and that kind of thing, that he desperately needed people in certain capacities or whatever. And he had mentioned on your call, Russ, that he needed, for example, people to read his papers that he had written, 300 plus over the course of 15 plus years, and to actually help him write up summaries of those papers that he could then put on his website to bring things down to the average person's level, if that's the way to put it, or lack of a better way to put it. So anyway, that piqued my curiosity, actually, my interest, and I called into your show that night, Russ, and I've been working with him ever since, and I have become the person actually to read his papers, and again, there are 300 plus of those, and he details an awful lot of information that there really has never been put out to the public other than in his own words. And understand, some of his papers are so incredibly detailed. It's very painstaking, actually, to read down through this stuff and make sense of where he goes with this information that he's researching. I mean, I'm so blown away by him. I have the utmost respect for this guy for the depth of focus that he has, or had even, in his work going toward, especially the more Gallon's focus he has now. And anyway, the reason I bring that up is because I started from day one when he began his papers. He was one of the first people to recognize that the spraying was going on, especially when it started late 1998, 1999, where the sprays became very pronounced and hadn't been around before, and then it became very heavy. So he became somewhat the grandfather, if you will, of the movement to get online to start asking questions if anybody knew anything of what was going on, and he became really a stalwart in the fight toward this stuff to recognize what was going on. So anyway, his level of analysis is incredibly deep, and it's almost indescribable to recognize the amount of work he must have put into where he was at a particular time. This includes intense mathematical calculations and physical, chemical calculations, the research, the reading he did, the books he opened, the libraries he went to, and on and on. Anyway, without getting too far into that, the reason I bring that up is because he proved in all of his papers, and I can reference these if you want me to, he came up with a bunch of the elements that are actually being sprayed, that we know are being sprayed, including barium, strontium, lithium, aluminum, etc. A lot of these metals and salts actually exist in a very specific category in the periodic table of elements. Okay, a lot of these are actually in the same area, the same category in that table. And what he was able to do is he worked with what's called the specific heat of those elements. And what he did is intense mathematical calculations. Anybody can read up on this stuff. I have complete faith in what he came up with. I don't think anybody can dispute it. I don't know that anybody ever has disputed what he came up with. But without further ado, what he did prove is that a majority of the elements that they do spray are indeed shown mathematically, physically, chemically to warm the atmosphere. There is no question that what they're spraying is warming the atmosphere. Now, the only caveat to that is there is a difference between the lower atmosphere and the upper atmosphere. If you spray certain chemicals, if you cloud the upper atmosphere, you can indeed cool the planet. But the vast majority of the spraying that's going on is in the lower atmosphere, and he proves this mathematically. And again, nobody can dispute this. Nobody ever has. It's amazing what he came up with. They are indeed warming the climate by spraying these chemicals in the lower atmosphere, which is what they do. So anyway, I can provide the links to this stuff, and he provides further links to NASA and other organizations within the government to show this is indeed the case. So I just wanted to throw that out there. There's no question to me in my mind, after having read through all these papers that Carnicom has done, I'm blown away. Actually, I find myself at times in awe of everything that's going on, including you guys and the work that you're doing. Anyway, that's sort of a point that I wanted to make. That was a bit of research I've done on my own. I just want to throw that out there in case anybody had an interest in that, including you guys. Russ, wonderful to have you back online again. I'm enjoying your call. And Michael, I've never gotten to speak with you before. I just have a quick question for you, and I'll get off my pedestal here. You had your movies, What in the World Are They Spraying and Why in the World Are They Spraying? And I thought you had come up, maybe I missed it, but you were going to come up with, or you did, Who in the World is Spraying? And I'm just wondering, do you have any further goals of any movies, exposés and that type of thing going forward that you've done in the past? Is that something that you are considering or working on, et cetera? That's question one. The second one is I spend a tremendous amount of time online researching, and I've come across people like Carnicom and Russ and Dane, Scott Stevens, and others, and I don't see you a whole lot. Are you as actively involved in social media as the others? I'm missing you, or are you just not as involved with being as out there as the rest? And I'll rest my case at that point. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you, Dan. Great to hear from you.
What I would call it, based on the subject of my last article, character assassinations, what they do is they take the targeted individual away from the work that they're doing, and they put them in a position where they're forced to defend themselves about issues that are really not in the common interest of the group or goal, and it strikes a very emotional chord. So if you call somebody a child molester, an adulterer, whatever, those things are very effective. So I can say a large percentage of my supporters, these character assassinations, were very effective at taking me out of my work, and a lot of support was lost. So there were some effective strategies, and so I sat back. So yeah, I've been out of the public for a while, but it was a much needed. I almost look back, and I'm thankful for the break, because it allowed me to address some of the personal things in my life that I had not addressed because I was addressing this issue. I'm back in full swing. We have social media now that's reaching, I think our highest numbers were 2.4 million per week. So I'm behind the scenes right now, and I'm just getting back into doing radio shows and other things. And but it was a good lesson. We can look at the strategies that were used and gain better discernment as a movement, not allow those to come in, and allow to be taken out, in the capacity that I was. So I think it was a real important point of growth in my life. But with that being said, yeah, Barry and I are moving forward, and I've been collecting research. Barry has become, Barry Kulski, co-producer, has just blown me away with the work that he's doing in the background, because he's coming up with a lot of things very pertinent to Who in the World is Spraying. That will be our third film. So we did have, again, a funding opportunity, and there was an agenda. Somebody said he had a goal to persuade that person not to support us, and that's really the goal. When you see people coming in with these things, character assassinations, going from person to person to person in the movement, now we're starting to see patterns with the same people. That's what they do. They try and persuade the group. Essentially what they do is they try to convince the group that if they continue their support of another individual, something terrible will happen to the cause. And it's very effective in the short run, but in the long run, the truth comes out. And bottom line is, these issues, whether they're personal issues, private issues, they have no place in our activism. Our activism needs to be on point, focused at stopping geoengineering. So let's use this as an opportunity to learn. And there's a common thing about forgiving and forgetting. No, let's get this straight. Damaging behavior is damaging behavior. And the people that did that, the door's not open to work with me. Unless they come out and publicly, retract their statements and really show me that they're able to work in an ethical capacity, that door is closed. So, so with that being said, yeah, we're moving forward. I'm confident that those funding avenues will open up and that we will be able to work in a manner that's much more effective. And Barry was very supportive through this whole thing. And it's a challenge because character assassinations really affect the group in an emotional level. And it's that very emotional key that's done by manipulation that pulls the support of each other. But let's, again, look at this as a victory as a group and say, hey, you know, we learned something. We saw the strategies. We're not going to allow this stuff to come into our movement. Those who are using those tactics, we're going to recognize them as damaging because they are.
All right.
If somebody does fall in the movement or somebody's struggling with something, it is our duty to support them and to lift them back up. And I've been involved in community organizing. I founded 2 inner-city food banks, and I've been involved with a number of outreaches, you know, inner-city outreaches here in Chicago and Phoenix and also LA. And I've seen the same dynamics, you know, come in. And I've seen a lot of movements fall, but I've seen the people who come out of this victorious and the people who use these divisive strategies, you know, they might gain a little bit of influence, authority, you know, for a little bit, but they don't last long and they're out of the movement. And that's where they need to be until they can show the maturity and responsibility to be at the level where we need to be effective at getting this out to the masses. There's no place for what we've allowed to come in, and essentially I've allowed certain things to come in, but anytime somebody has a personal issue, we should never see that on a website or public dialogue. Those things need to be addressed.
Yeah, very well said. Very well said, Michael. We do have another question. A caller with your phone number that ends in 06. You're on. Who are we speaking with?
Hi, this is Lana from Oregon.
Hi, Lana. How's it going?
It's going very well, and I want to thank you so much, and I want to thank you so much, Michael, and my heart goes out to you with your situation with your mom right now. It's hard to keep family business going and activism going at the same time. But I just wanted to say, and it was in reference to a caller a little while ago about what we can do. And I'm retired, I was retired. Now my new job is activism and geoengineering. And I try to give a presentation once a month. And I do it at libraries, and I do it locally. And I show a movie, and we have question and answers and pictures. And it's been very successful because everybody that walks away from those, then they start doing their own presentations. And we've got groups passing out flyers at health food stores and farmers markets and bit by bit. I mean, I wish every single person in the world was out in the street right now screaming for them to stop, but I don't always get my wish. But I'm doing the very best I can, and we all are. And I want to thank you so much for how positive you are, and thank you so much for addressing the division that can happen. I believe it's human nature, but it certainly happens to all of us, division and character assassination. But I want to rise above it, and I want us all to rise above it because it's much too important to be waylaid by negativity. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. And I just want to quickly comment, the people that you're touching, you know, sometimes our activism, we never see the fruits of our labor. And it could be 3 years from now, it could be 4, it could be 10 years from now, the light may go on. So your work is not done in vain. Anytime we get out in truth and integrity, we speak this message, you know, it's a process for some people to wake up and get the full capacity of what we're dealing with. So continue doing what you're doing. That's what we all need to be doing in all of our neighborhoods. And we are growing. You know, we've hit a couple bumps within the past year or so, and that's usually what happens when you're about to hit that critical mass point. So keep on keeping on, and God bless you. Thank you for being part of this. It's an honor.
God bless you, and take you back. Yes, and Russ too.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you so much. Well, great. Michael, we've kept you going for 2 hours now. I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk about this important subject. For those who want to know about where your article is, do you want me just to display the URL on the screen, or how do people see your article?
That would be great. A number of outlets have posted it, so you can Google, has the Chemtrail Geoengineering Movement been co-opted? Or even, it's a 3-part series, so we're going to address divisive issues coming into our activism in part 2. In part 3, we're going to address effective leadership and what we can do to improve. And I think it's the core. We have the information, and the information is power, but it has to be used in an effective way. And just like a sword, this information is very important. The way that we use it, though, you're not going to put a sword in the hand of a 3-year-old, because that is going to lead to disaster. So we need to mature, as a movement, learn from some of the bumps in the road, look at our past mistakes, and move forward with the information. So that's why, just thanks for the time, because I know I repeated myself a number of times, but I can't stress the importance of how we go about addressing this and where we need to go. And when we do that, when we're all in agreement with this, we don't allow these divisive issues, these sub-issues to come in, we're going to see our activism expand, tenfold, 100-fold, whatever it is, exponentially, and that's where we need to be. So thanks for all your work, Russ, and this is really the first time that I've had a chance, in a group setting to really discuss these principles, the group dynamics. And if we don't address them, there's no question there has been co-opting or diversion of our common goal. Let's get back on track. And I think this is something that, again, instead of pointing the finger, let's look at our own areas where we may have allowed this stuff to work through us, or even supported another individual, in doing this, and just recognize what it is, what it can do for our movement, and how much more effective we can be when we not allow these things to come in. So I think it's very positive, and again, I can't stress my gratitude for you opening up doors, giving me an opportunity to speak about this, because it's essential for us moving forward.
Well, absolutely, very well said. Is there a place where people can see you online? You want to give your website out, or where would you like people to go to see what you're up to?
Sure. Well, I do have a blog, but I'm not very computer savvy, and that's truthmediaproductions.us. But if you can support our work, I've been working a job 7 days a week. I just resigned to get back into the movement full time, so they're not on call 24 hours, 7 days a week. But I did build up enough finances where I believe I have enough padding to move out. But we do need support for our work. Our films are available for free, but we encourage everybody who orders the DVD to make copies and hand those out for free, and that allows us to get enough funding or enough income so that we can make rent. Believe it, I know, Russ, you've been attacked on a number of levels that you're doing this for the money. Let me tell you from personal experience, if anybody comes into this movement for the money, they're looking at a life perhaps of poverty. You better come in. It's a labor of love, and when you're doing the right thing, the money comes in. Whether it's you have $10 in your bank account at the end of the month, the money is there, and I believe there's a spiritual component that allows that to happen. So, with that being said, please support our work in those capacities. I think this article is very important. Please email that out, send that out to your email list, and it's pertinent to all movements, not just the Chemtrail Geoengineering movement. And then, the films are available for free online. We encourage everybody to post those on your social media. Get them out, send them out once a month to your email list, and that's how we do it. And the other work, that people have done, that's based on integrity. get those articles out, continue getting this message out, because that has, God, it's, you know, people say, wow, you and Barry have done a great, incredible job, you know, for building the movement. No, we did our work, but it was the activist community who spread, you know, the work that we did. So we're all interrelated. We all have a role within this, and we need to play that part. And when we do, wow, look what's happened. So thanks, everybody, for all of your support, you know, all the work that you've done. Let's reflect on how we can get better. We gotta really be at an A+ level to get that critical mass. We're 2% short, according to the polls. 2%, so we're at 8%, and we're probably at 2% awareness of this issue, and that's just my opinion, maybe just a couple years ago. So we've grown exponentially. We're still a small fish in a big pond, but we will be a big fish in a big pond, and we have to. Bottom line is this: we have to get these programs stopped. Let's not allow anything to weigh us down. Let's move forward, and I think we're doing that, especially tonight. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, Michael, thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and I agree with you. This is a community effort with so many thousands of people around the world all doing their part. The information that you brought forth is very critical and very important, because not only do we have to form a movement, but we have to maintain it and keep it from dividing and falling apart. And that's not easy to do, because we have people coming from all different walks of life and different viewpoints. So thank you for all your information, for what you've done. I would love to have you on in the future, and if there's anything we can do to support your efforts, you just let me know.
Thanks a lot, and thanks again. Keep on doing what you're doing. If you can get, we can post this. I know it's a long interview, but I think we covered a lot of important points. We'll get it out to our social media, and should be able to get us back in alignment. I see it happening.
Beautiful. Yes, I do too. So thank you so much. I'll have this posted either tonight or tomorrow, and I'll email you with a link. And Michael, thanks again for joining us, and we'll talk again soon. You have a great night, and all the best to your mother. I hope all things go well in your situation and your battle there.
Thank you. Could use all the prayers. God bless, and have a great night.
Thank you, Michael. Take care. Good night.
Your conference